It all started when I came back from a 2-week business trip to Tokyo. I was on top of the world, closed the biggest deal of my career, something that would set me up for years. I couldn't wait to get home, sink into my own bed, and maybe grab a drink to celebrate. But when I got to my front door and tried to unlock it, the key wouldn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I stepped back, a little confused, and tried a third time, but the key just wouldn't work. Now, I'm standing there on my front porch, jet-lagged, tired, and feeling like a complete fool. That's when I noticed something. I could hear voices from inside my house. People were moving around, and my heart started racing. I pulled out my phone, thinking I needed to call the cops. But before I could do that, the front door opened, and out came a family I didn't recognize. A couple and their 2 kids, all white, looked at me like I was the intruder. "Excuse me, can we help you?" the husband asked, his voice sounding more like I was a door-to-door salesman or something. I just stood there, stunned, but I dropped my 2 huge suitcases right there on the porch. My voice was shaking, but I couldn't stop myself. "This is my house. Who the hell are you people, and why are you in my living room?" I was just about to demand answers when she appeared. Veronica Ashford, the HOA president, standing there like she owned the world. I've never seen a person so full of herself. She was this tiny woman in a beige blazer and matching pants, holding a clipboard like it was the Holy Grail. Her blonde hair was pulled so tight, it looked like it was giving her a permanent facelift. And those blue eye slits just say, they could freeze you in place. "Mr. Bennett," she said, dragging out my name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "There seems to be some confusion here. As HOA president, I've taken the liberty of addressing your abandoned property situation." Abandoned? What the hell? Abandoned? I couldn't even process it. "Lady, I've been gone for 2 weeks on a business trip. My lawn care service has detailed instructions. I paid all my bills in advance. My neighbor's been checking on the house." She flipped through her clipboard like she was going over some important document. According to HOA Regulation 47B, any property left unattended for more than 10 days without proper notification to the board constitutes potential abandonment. We have every right to secure the property and recover expenses. She stood there like it was all official, while I stood there, losing my mind. The Hendersons, that's what I found out their names were, looked awkward as hell. The husband, Mr. Henderson, kept glancing between me and Veronica, clearly uncomfortable. Meanwhile, his daughter was hiding behind her mother's legs. "You rented out my house." My voice came out slowly. I could hardly believe it. "You actually had the audacity to rent out my house while I was working overseas." "The HOA has a responsibility to maintain property values," Veronica sniffed, adjusting her blazer. "An empty house for 2 weeks sends the wrong message to potential buyers in the neighborhood." I couldn't believe it. "The Hendersons needed temporary housing after their apartment flooded," Veronica continued. "And your house was sitting here, apparently vacant." That's when I realized this wasn't about property value. This was something deeper. My house was just the beginning. But here's where it got interesting. I didn't just take her word for it. No, I had the lawyer's brain working overtime. After the cops came, got things sorted, and Veronica and her fake lease agreement left, I went to work. What I found was a tangled mess of corruption, greed, and racial discrimination. I started digging into Veronica's HOA operations. I pulled public records. That's when I realized she wasn't just managing properties in Riverside Heights. She was running a scam. There were records of properties she'd secured, under the guise of abandoned, when the owners were simply on vacation or traveling for work. People like me. She even targeted houses of people who frequently traveled for business. And she had the audacity to create fake abandonment protocols that weren't even in the HOA charter. I wasn't the only victim either. I found out about Mrs. Chun, who lived 2 streets over. While Mrs. Chun was away sighting family in Shanghai for a month, Veronica had her beautiful koi pond removed. And guess what? That very same pond showed up in Veronica's backyard. When Mrs. Chun complained, she was fined for disturbing neighborhood harmony. Then there was the Rodriguez family. They came back from their daughter's wedding in Mexico to find their entire front yard landscaped with new plants they never asked for. Veronica sent them a bill for due law $8,000. When they refused to pay, she put a lien on their property. But the real kicker? Veronica documented every single transaction, every lease, every forged signature. It was like she was building my lawsuit for me. I couldn't believe it made it so easy for me. I started reaching out to other VY Tims in the neighborhood, and within hours, my inbox was flooded with messages. I found out the Garcias had been fined for parking their work truck in their own driveway. Sarah Mitchell, a single mom, had been forced to remove her son's basketball hoop because Veronica claimed it violated some non-existent regulation. I gathered every scrap of EVY Denke I could find: mails, bank statements, photos, even the fabricated lease agreements. And then, Veronica made her biggest mistake. She sent me an invoice for rental management VYCES related to my house. She had the audacity to bill me for renting out my property without my permission. I added that to my growing list of EVY Denke. By this time, I was ready. I called an emergency HOA meeting, and when the day finally came, I was ready to drop the hammer. Veronica showed up, as smug as ever, ready to face a room full of people she thought she could steamroll. But this time, the power had shifted. I stood up in front of the whole community. "Mrs. Ashford," I said, "I appreciate you bringing up inappropriate behavior, because that's exactly what we're here to discuss today." Her face turned white as I pulled out my own folder, one much thicker than her precious clipboard. I started reading from it. The unauthorized rental of my property, systematic targeting of homeowners based on race, fraudulent financial transactions, and fabricated violation notices. The room fell silent as I laid out the facts. Then the neighbors started standing up, one by one. Mrs. Chun spoke about the koi pond. Sarah Mitchell shared how Veronica had forced her to remove her son's basketball hoop. Even the Garcias joined in, telling everyone how Veronica fined them for their truck. When I finally finished, I said, "I have documented EVY Denke of fraud, discrimination, and abuse of fiduciary duty. Mrs. Ashford has been using her position to enrich herself while terrorizing the homeowners in this community." I watched as Veronica's grip on her clipboard tightened, her face pale with fear. "Is this true, Mrs. Ashford?" I asked, my voice steady. "Do you have an explanation?" But Veronica was done for. She stood there, sputtering and stammering. The crowd had already made up its mind. They voted to remove her as HOA president. And just like that, Veronica's reign of terror was over. The aftermath was swift. Veronica faced criminal charges. Fraud, discrimination, conspiracy, extortion. Everything she'd done came crashing down on her. But it wasn't just her legal troubles. Her real estate license was revoked. Her business dealings were exposed. The insurance company wouldn't cover her actions, leaving her personally liable for millions. And the news? It was everywhere. Veronica Ashford became the face of HOA corruption and discrimination. I filed a lawsuit, a class action with 37 homeowners who had all been wronged by her. The settlement? It was massive. Overdue law $5 million. But the best part? Veronica's life, her career, everything she had built, was gone. And as for me, I went on to build the Riverside Heights Legal Defense Fund helping homeowners fight back against HOA abuse. My business boomed, and I became a leader in advocating for justice. Riverside Heights was no longer a place where people were terrified to speak up. It was a place of community, of action, and of fairness. The lesson? Don't mess with the wrong person. Don't underestimate someone who knows how to document their fight for justice. And when a bully with a clipboard thinks they have all the power, they're wrong. Now, the neighborhood is thriving. And as I sit here, looking out at Riverside Heights, I can honestly say that despite the darkness we went through, it was worth it. It's a reminder the good guys really can win, especially when they're prepared.